In today's fight news, we start off with flyweight Andre Lima recently speaking with MMA journalist Laerte Viana in regards to his most recent DQ win against Igor Severino, in which Severino bit his arm and was promptly released by the UFC. In the interview, Lima stated that he hopes the UFC reconsiders and gives him another chance, and he said he's willing to do a rematch. While speaking to MMA Mania, former lightweight king Charles Oliveira had this to say in regards to a possible title shot delay due to an expected matchup between current champion Islam Makhachev and Dustin the Diamond Poirier. This is information that comes from the internet, and people talk a lot on the internet. While speaking to UFC on TNT, UFC president Dana White says that he expects to have a quote-unquote badass pay-per-view in England later this year. White also stated that he plans to announce the UFC Saudi Arabia card any day now. Dana White was also on an episode of the Lex Friedman podcast in which he discussed how fighters leave other organizations and come to the UFC and see a major difference. In his words, he said, "When you get to the UFC, you just saw it with MVP, you're going to see it with Kayla Harrison, and so many others that have come from other organizations, and they get here. They notice immediately the difference between fighting here and fighting wherever they were before. It's not even comparable to the impact it has on you when you leave whatever organization you're with and you come to the UFC." On a different interview with the Pound for Pound podcast, White had this to say about the future boxing match between Jake Paul and Mike Tyson. What Jake wants is Jake wants to make money. The people that follow Jake Paul don't buy Jake Paul's fights. So, Jake Paul has to fight people who can actually sell pay-per-views. Per MMA Uncensored, the third man in the ring for the main event for the historic UFC 300 event will be no other than Herb Dean. While speaking to Bodog Canada, former light heavyweight champion Jamal Sweet Dreams Hill had this to say about his future matchup with current champion Alex Pereira at UFC 300. It's not going to go well for him. That's why I'm loving all the talk, all the hype, all the Pereira is this, the mythical, all of that Build them up in your heads as big as y'all want to, so whenever I lay them out, y'all know how much further you really need to start trying to put together where I am and what I am. The former light heavyweight champion also said, "I am truly just better than he is, period." While on an episode of the MMA Hour, lightweight standout Renato Moicano had this to say about Paddy Pimblett's most recent call-out. Paddy Pimblett seems to be a very tough guy when people have fights scheduled, because when I got the fight with Jalen Turner, he made a video calling me out. If that video was 2 weeks before, 100% I would have accepted to fight him. But don't worry, Paddy Pimblett. Be careful what you wish for. If you want to fight Moicano, I'm going to F you up, my brother. Also on the MMA Hour, Coach Javier Mendes had this to say about comparisons between current lightweight champion Islam Makhachev and former lightweight champion Khabib Nurmagomedov. Okay, he's more skilled in multiple areas, yes. More dangerous? Nobody is more dangerous, in my opinion, in the world than Khabib. While speaking to MMA Mania, former bantamweight title challenger Irene Aldana had this to say about a possible opportunity to fight at UFC 306, stating, "Definitely, being in the sphere would be amazing." Per MMA Uncensored, former UFC champions Luke Rockhold and Tyron Woodley will be coaching a Tough-like series for the HFC MMA fight promotion. In other news, MMA legend Randy the Natural Couture had this to say in regards to the recent UFC antitrust lawsuit settlement. "I know Nate and those guys. They're fighters. They're not going to roll over. They're not going to give up just for some easy cash. So I don't buy that for a second. And that's the heat that they're under right now. I know they're being scrutinized because of that. I don't buy that for a second. Lastly, we finish off with the fight announcement. Bantamweights Garrett Armfield and Brady Heiston will be competing at a UFC Fight Night event on June 15th.